and put through an advanced vacuum cold process which removes the water using pressure. This maximizes the nutritional value while preserving the color, smell, and taste of the fruit or vegetable. The freeze-dried food is then ground into a fine powder without adding any additives, fillers, or extracts. These powdered foods are then mixed in our proprietary blends and encapsulated, locking out air and moisture. The capsules are then bottled and shipped directly to our customers. Balance of Nature is now offering 35% off on any new preferred order. Go to balanceofnature.com today and use discount code CHICAGO.
This is attorney Stephen Leahy. This isn't the first crisis we faced together. Back in '08, business professionals in trouble sought help from bankruptcy attorneys, loan modification attorneys, foreclosure defense attorneys, and IRS attorneys trying to gain full financial recovery. They should have just called me. Let me tell you about Chuck. His small business crashed in the '08 crisis. He faced 2 foreclosures, overbearing creditors, and the dreaded IRS. Chuck would not even get out of bed in the morning. His wife heard me on the radio and convinced him to hire me. We got Chuck a loan modification and a short sale. We obtained a discharge of his debt and settled what was left of his IRS liability. Now Chuck is back in business and in control of his life. You can hear Chuck tell his own story at fullfinancialrecovery.com. We can get through this new crisis too. The time to start rebuilding is now. Don't let your life's work go down the drain. Get your free guide to recovery at fullfinancialrecovery.com. That's fullfinancialrecovery.com. Or call me right now at 312-664-6649. There's no time to waste. Fight back now.
When you're hiring, there's no luxury of time. So instead of waiting for people to see your sponsored post, invite them to apply. More at Indeed.com/credit.
8:37. Let's check the roads in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with Jim.
Inbound Ryan traffic is jammed. 47th to 31st with a crash in the local lanes. 2 left lanes are blocked. It's 36 minutes from 95th to downtown. Much quicker in the express lanes. Outbound, your trip time from downtown to 95th is 12 minutes. I-57, 11 minutes. I-80 to the Verge, Bishop 410. Northbound Lakeshore Drive traffic is only a little congested now around Roosevelt. It's 12 minutes, Marquette to Monroe. Inbound Kennedy, your travel time O'Hare to downtown is 28 minutes. 17 from Montrose. Express lanes are a little heavier than the locals. The Edens runs 15 minutes either way between Lake Cook and Montrose. Inbound Eisenhower, 36 minutes, 390 to downtown. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast. Mainly cloudy and chilly throughout the day. A couple of rain or snow showers. High 45. We see sunshine right now and 34. Your next news update is at 9. And Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and as astounding as the things that were said about George Floyd by Pelosi and Biden, sacrificed himself, synonymous with justice, legacy of peace, as astounding as those statements were, essentially suggesting he's a modern-day Martin Luther King, more damaging were the statements Joe Biden made essentially about police when he told black and brown Americans to be afraid of police.
It's a trauma. On top of the fear so many people of color live with every day when they go to sleep at night and pray for the safety of themselves and their loved ones. In order to deliver real change and reform, we can and we must do more to reduce the likelihood that tragedies like this will ever happen and occur again. To ensure that black and brown people, or anyone, so they don't fear the interactions with law enforcement, that they don't have to wake up knowing that they can lose their very life in the course of just living their life. They don't have to worry about whether their sons or daughters will come home after a grocery store run, or just walking down the street, or driving their car, or playing in the park, or just sleeping at home. And this takes acknowledging and confronting head-on systemic racism and the racial disparities that exist in policing and in our criminal justice system more broadly.
Mm-hmm. That's responsible. In Chicago, for example, last year there were 700 people murdered, supermajority black. There were 7 fatal police-involved shootings. 700 to 7, and those police-involved fatal shootings were justified lethal force, as far as I recall. I don't recall a case there wasn't one in 2020. That's responsible. That's going to heal and promote sensible policy making, bring people together for thoughtful conversation. That sort of demagoguery.
And earlier he commented and said, he's praying for the right verdict.
Before the verdict,
right.
Obviously.
I mean, when was the last time a president weighed in on a jury decision before it was made?
Yeah, as Andy McCarthy pointed out, Biden's rhetoric, Maxine Waters' rhetoric, guarantees an appeal, in this case dragging on. And also, it recalls the histrionics we were treated to when Trump would weigh in on any pending case or pending investigation. This was disruptive of the justice system and the legal process. This was the stuff of authoritarians.
I mean, President Biden knows better. He's a lawyer, and he picked a side on this. Well, I know he hasn't practiced law, but
Hilarious. For more on this, let's talk to a real lawyer. He's a former prosecutor, former Cook County judge, former candidate for Cook County State's Attorney. He's Pat O'Brien. Pat, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan, Amy. I'm glad you had me on, and good morning to all your listeners.
So what about the pronouncements you heard from the president in the direction of law enforcement yesterday?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is that it's a good thing to balanced comments and not to go to one extreme or the other. And in this case, I think everybody can also be judged not just by the excessive force which resulted in the murder verdict against Officer Chauvin and the death of Mr. Floyd, but how they react to this.
Well, and there was a police reform measure that was advanced by a Republican senator named Tim Scott of South Carolina last term, and that was rejected out of hand because he's a Republican. I know Biden is running around promoting his George Floyd-inspired legislation. But the straw man arguments that are made in the direction of the police, again, I mean, there's a study out that was published in Vox.com today. That's a liberal outlet, a University of Massachusetts Amherst academic, finding that in places where there have been a significant Black Lives Matter protest presence between the years 2014 and 2019, that has reduced police-involved fatalities by 300. It has increased fatalities in those same communities by between 1,000 and 6,000. Now, of course, the left sort of fails to make the connect, but I just don't hear enough people saying, including members of these communities, although we've heard some that are beset by violence, we don't want police to go away. Yes, are there reasonable police performance we can talk about? Sure. Are there cases like the Chauvin case? Crimes? Yes, they are, as the jury so decided yesterday, and that's a terrible thing. But we don't want police to go away. We want police protection. In fact, we deserve the same police protection as the rich in other parts of the city, say, to use Chicago for an example. And what kind of trade-off is that, even just taking his statistical research at face value? 300 fewer police-involved homicides, killings, but 1,000 to 6,000 more homicides overall. Is that a good trade-off? Help me to know where the greater sign and less than sign is there.
Well, there's no question that the police are needed because humans are imperfect, and we not only have racism expressed, also have violence people who look exactly like us. So we need the police. And good policing needs officers get separated from the force. In the case of Chauvin, get convicted of the killing of George Floyd.
Well, what's your assessment of the state of affairs with police and the office you saw at the Cook County Prosecutor's Office in Chicago right now, as we're standing here with 183 murders as of this week, in the third week of April, and more and over 1,000 shootings?
This state's attorney, along with a number of prosecutors across the country, have a social agenda which I think is upside down and has proven itself, I think, to be a failure. You can't look at the office as simply one that is a social worker office and forget about the fact that there are violent crimes by persons who need to be prosecuted, who have to have that prosecution occur in a timely manner in order to have these communities, which are under attack, so that they can go about their lives in school and work and just doing whatever leisure activities they have. You cannot let violent criminals, and it's not a situation where you're talking about, thousands in any one community. You're talking about a handful, but they have the power to basically keep every person who's law-abiding locked.
Well, I mean, what about this ankle monitor situation that we're having where people on electronic monitoring with their ankle bracelets are out committing crimes? I mean, look at Ruben Roman, who was with Adam Talado. He bonded out, and he's on an ankle bracelet, but that doesn't mean he's going to stay home. Who's supposed to be guarding them and watching them?
This is a larger conversation, but I'd start it off with this, that there's a balance that has to be struck between and the, liberty of a person who's charged with a violent crime, but who at that point has not been, had their trial or has pled. But you have the right as a society to restrict the liberty of someone who commits a violent crime, who has had probable cause found that they, in fact, have committed that crime, and there's a period of time between the charging and the disposition. So you have a right to have some restrictions. Now, I don't know that cash bail is, the way to handle this. As a matter of fact, you pointed out about, the
Ruben
Roman,
yeah.
And essentially he's going to be out on what? Some organization posted about $40,000 cash for him.
They sure did.
And this guy was on bond on what I consider, when you have a gun case, to me that's a violent crime. So he's out on bond in what I consider to be a violent crime, commits another violent crime. He should be held in custody until there's a disposition. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Under withering questioning from Amy this week, Mayor Lightfoot said she's not happy about the electronic monitoring program, but Tom Dart is a great partner. She's also not happy about the lack of criminal trials in Cook County courts, but of course Tim Evans is a great partner too. Everybody's a great partner to everybody else, but it's just an opportunity to blame shift. What about the role of the Cook County judicial system and the lack of criminal trials? And in point of fact, I got a text from a criminal defense attorney friend of mine after that conversation earlier in the week, who said that he has not been in court since March of last year, and his first criminal trial is scheduled not until September of this year.
Ridiculous.
Well, obviously the COVID problem has caused a slowdown, and we have to take that into account. However, even before COVID reared its ugly head, the state's attorney's office was working at half speed. Typically, and there's got to be a kind of a benchmark, there's 50 felony courtrooms or a little bit more in Cook County. Okay, back in the 2019, which is the last full year before COVID, there was something like 170 trials. That's about 4 trials or less per courtroom. An average jury trial takes a week or less. So that means that every one of those courtrooms had 11 months on average. To me, the one-party rule that goes on in Cook County, and I was born a Democrat, obviously ran as a Republican because the elected officials in the county and the state don't seem to understand that there's a need for violent criminals to be prosecuted and not just patted on the head and sent about their business.
And Lori Lightfoot's sort of public ruminating about eliminating or curtailing or having to seek authorization before a police officer can give chase on foot. So we're not going to chase criminals. We can't chase them in cars. We're not going to chase them on foot. We're just going to wait until they're done with their violence and mayhem and then have a park ranger pick them up somewhere? Is that what we're going to do?
Obviously, when the Floyd, and as I indicated, that was excessive force by the officer. The verdicts were just. But you have to obviously put that in a context. And there have been other unlawful excessive forces against other persons of color and minority, and those have to be obviously handled by the justice system. But to react and overreact seems to me to hurt the very people who you think you're helping. Most of the calls that come into the Chicago Police Department certainly are from the areas where these crimes are for help, and somehow to feel that the appropriate societal reaction to the excessive unlawful force against George Floyd, that just seems to me to be going really too far. And there's got to be some pushback to the center in a balance of how to have responsible reform so that everybody can be safe and essentially have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
He is Pat O'Brien. He's former prosecutor, former Cook County judge, and former candidate for Cook County State's attorney. Pat, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, thank you very much. And to all your listeners, as I see snowflakes fall, have a happy spring.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
It's David Hochberg. If you or a family member are looking to purchase a new home, then you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Today, meet Aria, 30, web designer, income, $90,000 a year, purchasing her first home, and called her dad, Bob, for advice. Bob advised Aria to call the only lender he trusted, Team Hochberg, to help his daughter purchase her first home. Aria followed her dad's advice and called for a free consultation. Team Hochberg